Alright guys, I've been getting a ton of questions about the Galaxy S23 FE. This is a very popular phone that a lot of people are interested in now. The price has come down a lot since the last, I think it was 3 or 4 months we looked at this phone, and it's $324. It was somewhere around $380 to $360, and this is for an excellent version like the one I have here. I'll have that link down below for you guys. But this can be now a confusing buy for a lot of people, and I haven't made the comparison because I haven't picked up my S23 again. I have to buy another one. But yeah, you can see the S23 I think it should be around the same price point. That's new. So the S23, yeah, around $350. Yeah, so the S23 FE is now a little bit cheaper now. So they're roughly around the same price, so a lot of people are a little bit confused on which one. They have very minor differences, but I'll just go over them and then you can kind of make your conclusion based on that. Alright, so let's look at the hardware. It's a glass and metal device. The standard S23 has a matte finish. This one has a glossy finish, so you will pick up quite a bit of little smudges there. But it is a fully premium device here. Feels really good in the hand. We got those curves on the edge, and it feels good. It's a kind of a little bit of a sharp phone though, a little bit. But yeah, so hardware looks great. You got the same pretty much camera setup as well too. And everything looks great. It looks premium on the back. We'll get to the front, but you do also have IP68 dust and water resistant on here as well. So if you drop it in a pool or something like that, you will be fine. But everything is very well built. The buttons, all that good stuff. All right, so the display here. So that's what I was talking about. It doesn't look as premium on the front, and especially not compared to the S23. The S23 has a much better screen to body ratio as well. This one, it looks decent, but it's an 83.2. The S23 has a much better screen to body ratio. You really notice it down here as well. It does make it look a little bit cheaper. But as far as screen quality goes, you're not really missing out on anything. And this also has a bigger display at 6.4 inches. A standard S23 would have a 6.1 inch display, so it is a little bit bigger for people who watch a lot of content on their phones. It's a dynamic AMOLED 120 Hz display. This also has 1450 nits peak brightness as well too. It's 1080p 403 for the PPI, so it's still a pretty good display. It's very colorful. I really don't have any issues with a completely flat panel, but I think the biggest thing between this display that, you know, somebody would notice between this one and the S23 is that the display size, right? So if you want a smaller phone that's a little bit more compact, you would get the S23. And if you want a bigger phone that, you know, you watch a lot of media, you want something a little bit bigger, because this is not really like a big phone, but it's fine for watching videos and stuff like that. It doesn't feel like super small. So yeah, so overall for the display, not really a lot of compromises there, but and also guys, the display is brighter on the S23. This one has, it's pretty decent outdoors, but the S23 has a 1750 nits peak brightness. So that means in direct sunlight, this one will not be as good as the S23. So if you're outdoors a lot, you need to consider that as well. The thing that everybody hated about this phone when it first came out was that Samsung put the Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 processor in here. And a lot of people didn't like that, including, you know, myself. This one is running Android 14 with the One UI 6.1 on here as well too. You can see we got the 8 GB of RAM model on here, and performance wise, the 8 Gen 1 is still a good processor, but the processor on the standard S23 is definitely better. The 8 Gen 2 is not as power hungry as well too, which is something that, you know, I noticed between using these two devices. The casual user won't really notice a performance problem because the S23 FE is still pretty fast. The 8 Gen 1 does a pretty good job. Now this phone, I noticed since it got Android One UI 6.1, it does sometimes stutter a little bit more than I remember it doing. So it might need just some couple updates, and it's usually animation wise, but as you guys can see, it's pretty fast when we're just, you know, swiping around and doing stuff. We don't really have an issue with this phone set. But that is something I did notice picking this phone back up, is that it does tend to just sometimes, have a little animation stutter, but it looks like that's more of a software thing. But yeah, so when you do go into settings, the good thing about this phone, and that I was really happy about, was that you have the advanced intelligence on here. So you have all of the Galaxy AI features on here, I think, except one, and that is the hold to slow-mo. But everything else is on here that you guys would really like to use, so you're not missing out on that. And yeah, this phone launched for Android 13, so it has quite a few more updates to go as well too. So yeah, so as far as the software and speed wise, the phone is still pretty fast. Now, the one thing I don't like about this phone compared to the S23 is the gaming experience, right? Because this phone, it is going to heat up a little bit more, but it's not as optimized either. So basically you have, smooth, extreme, and that's it. The S23, the standard version, can play, this at much higher frame rates. So that's something that, I noticed. I thought it would take some time for this to get, optimized, which it still can. But so far it's not optimized yet. But yeah, so that's kind of like a trade-off that you would have to do, right? So the S23 is smaller, which I know a lot of people don't like, but it does have better performance. And yeah, so I would take that into consideration. But the S23 FE, as far as a casual gamer or just a casual user, it's perfectly fine. The phone is perfectly fine. If you don't have to play at super high frame rates and all that, you can easily come in here, play PUBG, Call of Duty Mobile, and pretty much, whatever else on your phone, and not really have to worry about it. We got dual speakers on here as well too. Pretty good speakers on here, pretty good bass quality, get pretty loud. The top speaker does a very good job as well too. We've got our optical fingerprint scanner on here as well, which works perfectly fine. And this is also another minor thing. The standard S23 has the ultrasonic, so basically you can kind of like lightly tap the ultrasonic and it'll register. With the optical ones, you just kind of apply a little bit of pressure. But again, a very small thing. Now, Samsung, I don't think really cut corners with the S23 FE with the cameras too much at all. So it's got a 15 megapixel standard and 8 megapixel telephoto with 3 times optical, then a 12 megapixel ultra wide. It can shoot an 8K24 with a 10 megapixel selfie that shoots in 4K 60. It's pretty much identical to the S23. And as far as the camera specs go, the S23 has a 10 megapixel telephoto. But photos look really good on the S23. I'm always really impressed coming back to this device. And image quality looks great, very crispy shots. It does a decent job in low light. Also video looks good as well too on here. So I don't really have any real complaints about the S23 FE. There might be a difference in the telephoto quality. The S23 might have better telephoto, but besides that, just looking at the stills and stuff like that, I think it looks perfectly fine. I think it looks pretty good. The battery life is pretty decent. Since we started the video, we were at 100 and we're at 96, and remember, I'm at max brightness as well too. And yeah, so battery life, I've never considered this phone to be a phone with bad battery life. I know a lot of people were mentioning that in the comments, but I don't think this phone has bad battery life at all, especially for me. And yeah, it's pretty much a full day phone for sure, in my opinion. So it does have a 4,500 milliamp hour battery, and then you also do have the 25-watt charging on here, and then you also have wireless and reverse wireless charging on board. So battery life, I think it's pretty good. It's pretty decent. I don't think it's bad at all. All right, so basically, should you pick this up over the S23? I I think that it really depends, but me personally, I would probably go with the standard S23 just for the more premium feel and look and for the newer processor. Now, it really comes down to the screen size on here as well too. Some people just want a bigger screen at 6.4 inches. I definitely can understand that. And then, you know, it just really depends. Other than that, if the screen doesn't bother you on the S23, I would just pick that up, honestly, because I think you're just getting a more, you know, well-polished device here. For me to pick this up over the S23, it would have to come down in price to like maybe 270. I think if it comes down to 270 or 280 or something like that, then it would make more sense. But if they're almost around the same price point, then I think the S23 FE is fine. But like I said, I would pick up the standard S23. So be sure to let me know what you guys think, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.